All right, folks, I'd like to welcome you all to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Last week, we had a little technical difficulty, so our hearings were not of the legal nature, so we made the decision as a group to come in for this one hearing this evening. And I'm hoping that we can answer all the questions. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we're going to go through the regular procedures that we normally would for a hearing. And then we'll all be dismissed, so hopefully we won't be here for too long, but that is the plan. So, again, my name's Lynn Fiddler. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. Today is Monday, July 19th, 2021. Time certain, time to start was 6:30 p.m. It's currently 6:38. I'd like to remind everybody that this is a hybrid participation meeting. The Zoom meeting ID is 849-3827-7034. The code is 952004. If you're dialing in this evening, you need to remember to press *6. That is the way for you to unmute yourself. So when the time is yours, you just press *6. Again, this is part of, as you all know, this is pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, dated June 16, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency regarding suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, Town of Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals meeting will be conducted both in person and via remote participation. And all of this is on our agenda for this evening. So tonight we have our members, Chris Belisos, Larry Keane, Lynn Fiddler, Heidi Conway, Mark Stiles, and Steve Feeney. We also have Nancy and Andrew here as well to help us through this process. So I am going to bring this meeting to order, and Nancy, do we have anything that you'd like to share with us on this particular hearing?
I do not have anything to share.
Okay.
I believe everyone had everything submitted prior to last hearing. I just printed out some of the comments for you tonight.
Okay, thank you.
In case you didn't have them, but.
Okay. So, the public and the board is aware. Again, this is case 2141. I have already read this into the record. This, I believe, would technically be our third hearing for this particular project. And I'd like to just begin by allowing the applicant a chance to address the board. And then I'm going to just quickly go over with the board new information that we've received since our previous hearing. So it's all just on the record. The board's pretty, at this point, doing Zoom hearings. We're really right on the mark as far as reading our emails and understanding and taking notes. So I'm expecting that the board has already reviewed your emails. So if you'd like to add anything or help us to our just.
Sure, not too much.
Identify yourself, please, for the record.
Of course. My name is Nicholas Ling from Ready Consulting on behalf of the Martinowskis. And we have provided you with an updated plot plan, which you see is up on the screen here. Before I continue any further, would anybody like me to take out the paper version and put it up on the easel? Or does the digital version suffice for everybody at this point?
I think we're good. Thank you.
The only two revisions that were made to this plan were the parking was delineated on and off the street, and the 29.8-foot side setback to the existing dwelling specifically was added to the plan. Other than that, no other provisions were made. And as the chair had mentioned, we had submitted a response document to the butter concern documents that were submitted about 3 weeks ago, I think at this point now, prior to the last hearing. And I will leave that open to any questions from the board.
So where this is the final site plan, Nancy, or Andrew, would you mind going to the legend? I have it as July 7th, 2021. I want to make sure for the record we have the correct.
Yep, July 7th, 2021.
Excellent, thank you. Alrighty. So I'm going to just review what I noticed through all of our emails and ask the board to comment if they had any particular questions on the multiple emails. And all of these, of course, are part of the record at this point, and I'm just going to go down my list. So we had on July 9th, 2021, we had Erin Murphy, which was an email to Nancy in favor of this particular applicant. We also had an email with various pictures. The first one that I'm going to reference is, I believe, an original that perhaps was a family picture with folks in the front lawn or something of that nature. There was an email on July 9th from Heather Geddes, which was also a butter or someone in the neighborhood that commented and was in favor of this project, commenting on the aesthetics of the project, negligible traffic, and things of that nature. July 8th, Donna Martinowski sent us 14 pages of various homes in the neighborhood. My interpretation of those pictures was that they were all houses, additions, and things of that nature that were of a similar characteristic to the proposed project, of some degree of variation on all of those. I think the intention of that, and this is just my impression, was to show the board that there were other homes in the neighborhood that were not cottage style homes or things of that nature. So I also had on July 9th a notice from Parker J. to Nicholas Lang, which was in reference to wastewater, and it was determined in that email that there was no issue as long as the new construction did not affect the existing sewer, and it would be okay in that instance. Also, we had a Plan N, page 33, which was Seminole and Saconnet Ave. It was dated 1941. I believe it was 25/1941, which I reviewed as well. And then finally, we ended up with a plot plan, which I spent some time looking at, and we just confirmed it was July 7th, 2021. Anything I missed?
Do you want to check
It
that?
seems like there was a lot there. Board members, are there any particulars of the correspondence that you would like to go through at this particular time? No?
No.
No.
Any questions or comments?
Just to be clear, we're dealing with just a special permit for
That is
non-public.
correct. We haven't, as far as I can recall, I don't believe we did anything with the variance as far as the applicant requesting to deny it as moot, so.
Is that the applicant's desire?
I
to-
believe that was part of the second hearing.
We had removed all variances from the plan after the first hearing.
So your actual original application was as such as requesting a variance.
Correct.
So let's
On the
perhaps
variance, to get that out of the way.
close, let's leave everything together right now and ask the public for one final. But I want to be clear that we've heard similar comments over and over again, and I'd like to be clear that the public, although we're here, each applicant is given the respect of the board, and the public is as well. So if you would limit any comments to things that we haven't heard before, and down to perhaps 5 minutes would be my request. So are there any questions or comments from the public? Sir,
Yeah, my name is, would you like me to approach the table?
I'd like you just to stay there, you're fine.
Okay.
We can hear.
Stand up and,
You can, if you'd like, you can do
But
that.
just for the record, my name is William Egan. I'm an attorney from Whitman, and I represent Brian and Susan Dahlman of 29 Secundit Ave. I keep messing up their address. Is that correct, Brian and Susan? Yes. And I've spoken a couple times from the board, and I thank you for granting me the time. One point I just wanted to make in regards to what the chairman just said regarding the photos of other additions or structures. I was informed by my client and some of the other abutters that those pictures aren't of homes on Secaucus Ave. Just to be clear for the record, so,
We are aware of that.
okay.
Yep.
So they're not necessarily in the neighborhood, they could, some of them I was told some distance away, there's some significant differences between this and this project. But just to be quickly and try to stay within my 5 minutes, which is, an attorney is very difficult at times. But obviously, to expand the non-conforming use for this lot, you need to grant a special permit under 305-10.12, as you know. And you have to satisfy all 10 conditions listed in that section of the bylaw. The size of this project, being this addition bigger than the existing building or any other building on Secaucus Ave, I think is a problem. And I think it calls into question whether you could find that some of the conditions are met on that project. Obviously, it's the original plans which we have gone through about having a full kitchen and whatnot, and they removed the stove at the suggestion of Mr. Murphy. And they removed the stove, but the rest of the plan and the rest of the functional elements of the addition remain the same. That they're going to have a dining area, bedrooms, and things like that. So the intent is to add a significant living area to this property. And as a direct abutter, obviously, the size of this project, the additional traffic, and I just had one question for Nick after I'm done. If you could just point out where the off-street parking is on the plan, I appreciate that for the record. That I think it's going to significantly affect my client's use of their home next door, because you're adding roughly 2,200 square feet of finished space to a home next door that's roughly 1,700, if I recall from the assessing records. And that is the biggest finished area on the whole street on Secaucus Ave. So I would like the board to discuss that point when it comes to such requirements as public convenience and welfare. Does it impair the integrity of the neighborhood of the street when you're adding more living space than is already existing, or more living space than exists on the whole street? Or that the fact that adding an addition of this size with additional bedrooms, dining area, wet bar, laundry facilities, that changes the character of the neighborhood there. It does. It's all residential, so that character is the same. But the size of this project, I know, actually that's our position, that it negatively affects the neighborhood, particularly the two abutters, people directly next door to the property. I think it would behoove the board to talk about the size of the addition and maybe encourage the parties to engage in some sort of discussion about maybe making something smaller. That just through these 3 hearings, that topic has never come up, and I was a bit surprised by that. And am I running up against my 5 minutes yet? And obviously, the parking issues, I'd like to hear from Nick on that. I still think that you're adding a couple of bedrooms, a couple people.
All right.
And I don't think, given those facts, I think the intent of this section of the bylaw is to protect the abutters and protect the neighborhood. And that when you can't meet all those 10 conditions, it negatively affects individually my client. And that's where they'll have their standing on appeal in the future should we need it.
Can you, Nick, respond specifically again to the parking for this project?
Yeah, off-street parking.
Off-street parking,
Off-street
sir.
parking, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get on. All right, so this line out here is the outside arc of where the asphalt currently sits, and it's squared in right against the structure. We have 1, 2, 3 rectangles that are regulation size parking spaces according to the zoning bylaw, and I've actually gone over and added what I considered an oversized parking space just to show detail of where a school bus might be parked adjacent to the other 2 vehicles on that driveway.
Is that all off-street, just to confirm?
Yes.
Okay. Any other members of the public? Yes.
Yes, Jackie Davis, 19 Secaucus Ave. And I guess before I start, just to reference the parking, those squares overlap. Like the plan that I have shows that these rectangles overlap. They can't be used as all parking spaces. So I'll leave that to the board, but I contend that the application for this special permit is incomplete. According to the Marshfield zoning bylaws, it's essential that all 10 criteria be met, and in Form 2C, questions 2, 6, and 8 do not address the condition. I will paraphrase, I don't have time to read all of it and read the applicant's response, but question 2, the applicant does not address the condition about is this structure essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare. I understand that this structure is essential / desirable for the applicant. But as you can see in this room here today, the abutters on 19 Secundit Ave are here, and it's not essential or desirable for us. And as taxpayers of Massachusetts, it should not be considered desirable for anyone, because this property will not be taxed and regulated as an accessory apartment should be by the Massachusetts Marshfield zoning bylaws. For questions 2 and 6, it talks about the structure and how will it impair the character of our neighborhood. For 2 and 6, both items, the applicant does not address the condition. In the application and the subsequent memos, the character of the neighborhood is ignored. And how the street will be substantially different. Yes, it will be, because this house will be 3 times larger than any of the surrounding homes. As shown in the photos provided and mentioned earlier, yes, there are larger homes, some even 3 stories, in and around our areas. But they're being built in town, and in my opinion, these homes have been done right. These are all smaller lots where the existing structure has been completely demolished and a new structure has been rebuilt, and everything is under one roof line. Further review of the bylaws, I asked the board to review section 305-11.09, the accessory residential apartment section, since the applicant has made it clear that the intent of this application is for a new apartment unit. I asked you to review the criteria when ruling in this application. See 305-11.09, section C2. The accessory apartment shall occupy no more than 40% of the total living space of the dwelling. Section 8, sufficient parking shall be provided on and off the lot. And section 9, the principal dwelling shall be occupied by the owner. As for the plans and documents put forth by Grady, I have to ask, the original plans that were signed and stamped, including the application, were signed and stamped by Mr. Grady. He is yet to show up for a meeting, and his stamp has since been removed from the plans. Does Mr. Grady even support this? Does he know what work's being done here? Did he even read the memo that Nick sent over before it was sent to the board? According to the application, Mr. Grady is the one who should be here speaking and answering the questions for the board and the public. Following the last meeting in June, I spent a week reviewing the plans and compiling my questions to be answered by Grady. As for my response I received from Grady on my memo, I did not like the fact that some of my comments were just negated. Yes, I have been to all of these meetings, and not once did Nicholas explain or answer any of my questions in quote-unquote at length, as he references 11 times in his memo. I spent numerous days trying to understand these plans put forth by Grady, and most of my comments were not even addressed. I asked these questions so I can fully understand the information put forth. Not answering my questions is not acceptable. He has been unable to answer simple questions like how many bedrooms are in the proposed structure. And the more complicated ones that I asked about bearings and distances, I didn't get an actual answer. The answers that I did get from the letter were blatantly false. Like the disposition of a 24-inch tree has been added to the plans. A disposition is a detail that will tell you what's happening during construction. Will this tree be retained, removed? None of this, and a disposition, has still not been added to the plans that I received. As a town resident and an adjacent abutter, I have invested numerous days and hours into reviewing these plans, and I asked the board, I did what the board asked by compiling all my questions into one memo. which I got to Grady within the week of final submittal of all files. I asked the board, why request such information if you're going to completely let Grady ignore all of my comments altogether? I asked, what else is being undisclosed in this application for this project? And how can this be ruled on since there's so many questions that are unanswered? To the board, I asked you to provide actionable items to actually safeguard the integrity of our neighborhood. And for our neighbors sitting here tonight, I asked you to review and consider the following stipulations for this request. Please review the residential accessory apartment guidelines. As noted by Mr. Murphy on the first night of the meeting, no full-size appliances should be provided within the proposed addition, not including but not limited to a stove and a washer and dryer unit. Please ensure that tree protection and erosion control will be provided and maintained during construction so there'll be minimal debris within our roadway. And that this property must maintain a single-family dwelling and it cannot be separated into a condo and/or rental unit for a future sale by the means of allowing only one electrical meter for this property during construction. And to note, approving these plans in this application will set precedent in the town of Marshfield. And allowing homes on non-conforming lots the opportunity to overdevelop and build unregulated accessory apartments that could be later developed and sold as condos. In closing, my husband and I were never opposed to this addition of our neighbor's home. It has always been presented to us as a new structure and a new opportunity for their son. But what's shown here is a new structure that is 2,200 square feet and larger than their existing home. And it's only connected to the primary resident apartment by a 5-foot mudroom. This is not a modest addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
I just have a question of
Just a
procedure.
second.
Sure.
Could you please tell us who you were winking at when Ms. Davis started to speak?
I didn't.
No, it was a wink. This woman
I don't even know this woman. I put mascara on, honestly, and I never
Yes.
wear it. I apologize.
Well, there's more than myself that saw that. As soon as she started to speak, you winked at somebody.
I don't even know, I'm sorry. I don't know. Yes,
Could we get that person's name for the record?
yes,
please?
could
My
I,
name is Susan Carver.
Susan, I apologize for that, but I did not intentionally wink.
It came across as very inappropriate, I have to say.
I apologize.
Did you see that? She turned
I'm
around and
sorry.
looked at me.
I saw it as well.
I-
It's just
I understand
unprofessional, regardless
I
of what you
understand that.
think.
I didn't
You're the
intentionally do that.
chairperson.
So
It's not-
I did not intentionally do that.
Are these all the butters? They should probably identify themselves.
Player
Ma'am.
Point,
18 Secundus.
Okay.
And I'm Ann Maloney, 26 Secundit Ave.
Anybody else? I understand. I apologize for that.
I just had a question of procedure though, really quick.
Sure.
Just based on what the chair had said prior to me speaking, is my previous submissions on, I think, June 17th and June 29th are part of the record. You'll be considering them as well as far as the board's obligation to make findings on all 10 conditions, correct? That's part of my previous submission. So that's in the record?
It is part of the
Okay.
record.
Just want to be sure so I don't have to repeat myself.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Donna Martinowski, the applicant. Can I speak?
You may.
Okay. I just wanted to point out something. I mean, they're talking about the parking. I'm actually one person on the street that doesn't have a problem parking. This rounded off thing that I put in for my bus, I could very easily make it straight and make 2 more parking spots. The trees that are planted along there, I showed you the pictures. My parents planted them. Nobody can tell me what to do with them. And also, I don't know how to really read these things so great, but I took a screen porch and a back porch off right here. That's gone. This is all moving in. I took the shed and moved it, and I took the garage and tore it down. I am not asking for that much more for the building than what I took out. And it's a mess right now, and people are looking at it. There was something else I wanted to say. This parking thing is ridiculous. That seems to me to be their biggest problem, is the parking, and I don't get it. I have a bigger lot, he said. He said that there's no other houses large enough on the lot, as large as mine. There's only one house that has the same size lot as me. So you're comparing me to one person, not everybody on the street.
Ma'am, could you please address the board and not the public? Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
But I mean, I am not, and you know what? I probably won't be the last big house on the street. They'll probably be back here in 5 years trying to do the same thing.
Okay, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Yes, sir, do you have?
Brian Donlin, 29 Secundit Ave. And my gripe is, it's the biggest house in the street, 1,750 square feet. And we're putting 2,200 square foot, two-story structure attached into it to the back. So you're creating a wall between me and myself and anything way near the ocean. Plus the parking is an issue because there's a wall in front of that house. And in order to get the bus in, you have to jag it inside, into a small opening. And when this house is complete, from what I'm looking at, you have 5 feet you're going to lose of the parking space, because the house is literally going to become 5 feet forward, this new house, attached to the house that's existing. You're talking 4,000 square feet of house here. And the lot is only 8,600 square feet. If you look, you're like, people I show it to go, are you kidding me? They can't do that. The board will never approve that. So here we are. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? As the applicant, do you have anything further to say?
The only thing I have to mention is the overlapping parking space comment, at which I believe I did say when I pointed those out to kindly Mr. Egan, is that?
You're correct.
That overlapping parking space that is shown was something I put there just to demonstrate what a bus looks like on there. It is not meant to be considered a fourth parking spot, and I never made that point.
Comments from the board?
Is the applicant prepared to accept a special condition that they'll never seek an accessory apartment variance or request?
If I may, I believe that it was discussed at the last hearing that this lot is both not applying for an accessory apartment nor meets the requirements for an accessory apartment. And I do believe that Donna specifically said she would be okay with any kind of special requirement that it maintains a single family status.
Is that correct?
Yes, it's for my family.
Oh, I get it.
I mean,
I get it.
I don't think we can do
Now,
that anymore.
I would caution the board
think you
against
can do
making
that.
any special
It's not
conditions
on
that
the
would not grant them the rights that are granted to them in the bylaws, so you have to leave that open and let the board discuss that when they actually apply for an accessory apartment thing. That's
It's not what we're here
not relevant to this discussion, quite frankly.
I agree.
Any comments?
I don't know.
We'll have a time and deliberation too.
No,
But I
it-
appreciate you asking.
Okay, also with, that's obviously gonna be a hot button issue here, so, if that's unable to be put into the paperwork tonight, and at a later date, they were to bring it up, would it be able to be brought up at that point?
As far
That
as
was
an
discussed.
accessory
That was
apartment?
discussed, an accessory apartment. Because clearly to me, that's what I'm seeing as being the biggest issue here.
Yeah.
Parking, it's
So there's-
there, it's, the cars only.
There's a lot happening with the accessory apartment, not
Correct.
just in Marshfield, but in the state as well.
Mhm.
And it very well could be that the state is going to determine all this for us and make accessory dwelling units and detached accessory dwelling units legal in the entire town of Marshfield. And everybody will have that right to do that.
Right.
The state may make that declaration for us. But there are also bylaw changes proposed for town meeting in the fall as well regarding this. So that's, again, another reason why I would caution the board making any decisions regarding an accessory apartment or any special conditions regarding an accessory apartment, because we don't know what the future is hold, and they didn't apply for that. and we're here to discuss the addition as proposed. As far as making sure that there's not going to be an accessory apartment, that's on me and the building inspectors and the building permits that they're going to make sure that they don't add the necessary things that we've talked about in previous hearings that would make it a habitable space as far as having cooking facilities goes.
I just comment on, it's 21st name Andrew, and
I'm Andrew Stewart, I'm the building commissioner.
I realize that. And as far as any sort of concern about prospective changes to the state zoning act or anything to that effect, I think it obviously is a concern that they put a stove in to make this a fully functional unit. That is one of the concerns, in addition to the size of this addition, which my client already spoke about. I think a condition in there, if you should approve this, which we're hoping you do not, so I'm clear on that this doesn't become a fully functional unit. Obviously, if they want to make it a fully functional unit, they can come before the board and have that condition removed going forward. So I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And my hope is that you do not approve this application for expanding the non-conforming use because they don't meet all 10 conditions, as we've talked about. I'm not going to reiterate. But I think any condition, should you try to approve this, would be appropriate going forward. And it would give at least some solace to the abutters. They won't be pleased with this if you approve it, but I think the building commissioner's point is probably what we're on.
Thank you. Do you have any final comments? I think I've heard everybody. Any final comments on the steps to the side?
Yeah, I mean,
Or the side setbacks?
The what?
The side setbacks to just.
Everything that is proposed currently falls within the bylaw, what's allowable with a special permit. Everything that they've submitted right now as far as what's on the site plan for setbacks and everything else does not violate anything in the bylaw.
All right. What's that, folks?
I am.
So I am going to make a motion to close if there are no further comments. I'd like to make a motion to close the variance. Do I have a second?
Second.
And that's the variance 305-10.11, seeking relief from 305-6.10. Heidi has seconded. All those in favor of closing the variance?
Aye. Chris Pelazos.
Thank you.
Larry Keane, aye.
Lynn Fiddler, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Mark Stiles, aye.
Steve Heaney, aye.
So this evening, we have actually 6 votes here this evening, and you are sitting on this hearing. Was that determined? Which one?
I think everyone's here.
I believe you were.
Yep.
So Chris will be the voting member in lieu of Brian Murphy, but we, of course, will take your input as well, and we'll move forward. So with the advice from the applicant, I'd like to deny the variance as moot. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Chris Pelazos, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Lynn Fiddler, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Mark Stiles, aye.
Steve Heaney, aye.
Okay, folks. So we are now closed. Does the board want to deliberate this evening, take a short recess? Or what is the board prepared to do?
I'm ready.
You're ready? Okay. So, Andrew, would you put up the special permit for us, please?
The application?
Thank you.
I think we need to go through all 10.
Yes. So we're looking at 305-10.12 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to demolish 2 existing sheds and construct a 30-foot by 34-foot 2-story addition with an upper deck and associated stairs. And the 2 variances are moot. So, in this particular case, the applicant has come in front of us and has reiterated, I believe in the second hearing, that this was not here for an accessory apartment. This is not just my belief of what has gone on throughout the last few hearings. So when you're looking at the special permit, the use requested, it's, and then in number 1, it's the use, right? And then number 2, requested use. The requested use. Number 3, the requested use. So what we're talking about here, in my opinion, is in regard to the use of this particular property and how that use affects the neighborhood, how it affects the district, how it affects the abutters. Any special regulations for the use are fulfilled. The requested use will not impair the integrity or character. So I think from my standpoint, I really want to hear the rest of the board's feelings, but if we're here about a single family dwelling and a special permit to allow that to occur with this size, and as we have been going through this, is it intensifying? I don't think they argue that it's technically the reasoning for their the character of the neighborhood changing. But I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say in regard to the use, if the applicant is here in front of us for what is typical in our special permits for a large addition. So, Chris, or anybody else, I don't want to go down the board and.
Well, real quick, I think with the use, they've addressed it being used as a second family, as a 2-family. Building inspector, building commissioner Andrew has been on that. He's something that he is going to address at the time of a building permit to ensure that it's not going to be set up as a 2-family home. I get that. I lived, before I moved down to Marshville, I owned a 2-family and I lived in it for 20-something years. It is different, and I don't think that is what she intends on doing here. She has a family member that's moving in. COVID-19 has absolutely changed the dynamics of what's going on in our society. For good, for bad, who knows, but it's making changes. And family members, extended family living under one roof, I think this may be the way of the future. And I think the fact that the accessory apartment or the 2-family has been addressed, and Andrew this is clearly on his radar, and he's gonna, I can pretty much guarantee and ensure that it's not gonna be set up as a 2-family. So as far as use goes, that's my feelings on it.
I just want to clarify for the board, Mr. Egan, sorry, clarified that I had the wrong section up.
Yeah.
When it's 10.12 is the one, these are.
Then would it make sense to just?
This is, it actually is, there's 10.
I think that we're going to have to
need
go
to create
through
it.
one at a
One-
time.
Yeah,
So,
there's 10 of them here
yeah,
that you should probably address.
And I don't always give my quick on that, but yeah, let's be productive and let's ask the board with a roll call vote, and see where the sticky points are. So, number one, the use requested for extension or alteration is listed in the table of use. And if we can make all of these in the affirmative, then we'll move on to actual specifics of the rest of them. So, Chris, how do you feel about number one?
As to one, no question, it's appropriate.
All right.
I am not.
Yeah, I can just say that that's, yeah.
Yeah.
One is,
So does the board all agree? Aye. Number one. Number two, the request extension is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare.
I think it's fulfilled.
Fulfilled.
I feel the same.
I do as well.
To respect the butter, I think we should talk about it a little bit, though.
Okay.
The butters have made points that this is going to detrimentally affect them. So are they part of the public? Yes. Are they the only part of the public? No.
So where to go with that?
In essence, what Mark's saying is that the petitioner is part of the public.
The petitioner is as well,
Right.
as is anybody who lives 5 miles down the road.
Right. So we did have other large additions in other areas in this district where we talked about neighborhood and what neighborhood meant to the board, and was there a definition for neighborhood, and you know, obviously we've got some different schools of thought in what neighborhood means, right? So when the abutters are asking questions and commenting, some are in favor, some are not in favor, because of the neighborhood and how it's termed in the bylaw, this board has that discretion.
Does Bob want to chime in?
If Bob is available.
He's online.
Bob, are you available?
One thing I did hear come up a couple of times is the size of the house. We do not have a big home regulation, a large home
Right.
policy, so
He's on.
Bob, can you hear me? Andrew?
is there a way to
I
get
can
this?
hear him, but it's not coming through the speaker on the TV.
That's because this isn't connected to that anymore.
Can we just turn that on?
Have Bob call my cell and I can put it on speaker.
Everybody can hear him on TV.
Oh, really?
Hear him on, of course.
Is the volume of the TV down?
Just a minute, Bob, we're working through this.
Can you have Chris call him?
It's on.
Either of you, if he calls us directly in a direct line in.
Yeah, he could call me and I can put it on speaker for you or something.
Why don't you do it over there where you're closer to the audio? Bob, if you would call Andrew.
I just texted him.
Thank you. We used to have an actual we used to have an actual telephone up here. We didn't have any remember
When we
we
started.
didn't even have anything else except for a telephone
And a tape recorder.
and a tape recorder. Yeah.
Oh, there he goes. His phone.
There it is.
It's like play by play. It's picked up the phone.
Hey, Bob.
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can. Yep. We can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I was trying to talk.
All right.
So Bob, can you help the
I've walked out of the meeting. I don't know if it was interference on my end or what. But
Okay.
I've watched and listened to everything that's been said so far.
Okay.
If you go through, though, I think the board is doing the right thing. You're going through consider each of those factors, and you have to make a finding as to each one. Okay? I think there are some that are absolutely no-brainers. Okay? So why don't I tell you what those are, so you can focus on your discussion on the ones that I think you've heard considerable debate about. Obviously, it is not only the uses, as Fiddler has pointed out, but it's also the structure, because the structure is what's non-conforming, not the use. It's a single-family use. My understanding is that there were elements that appeared to make it look like an accessory apartment, which they weren't looking for permission for. So that's a non-issue at this particular point. I think no matter what you do, I think it has to conform to the latest version of the plans as amended, and there should be an as-built plan submitted. Okay? This would be a potential condition. And I think in light of what's been said, where the applicant is saying they don't want it to be used as a two-family, absent a zoning change or further zoning relief, you could put a condition that says it will not be used as a two-family. In terms of the various things, subsection 1, this use is listed as permitted use in that zoning district. And so that's easy. Number 2, the requested extension or alteration is essential or desirable to the public convenience and welfare. It's not just to the neighborhood here, it's to the public as a whole. Okay. Number 3, the requested extension or alteration will not further create undue traffic congestion or impair pedestrian safety. I think you know what that means, and you can evaluate that. 4, will not overload any public water drainage or sewer system. You'd have a letter from one of the town boards if that was, if any of those were implicated. So I think that is not a factor in this particular thing. So you can make that finding. There are no special regulations relating to the use of structure as set forth in Article 12. So then the big ones are, is the requested extension or alteration of the structure going to impair the integrity or character of the district? That means the entirety of the R3 district. It doesn't mean this individual neighborhood. Okay, it means the district, zoning district, not specifically the homes on this street. You have to look across the R3 district, and Andrew can display the map so you can see that. Or is it detrimental to the health, morals, and welfare? You need to be able to say whether this proposed addition to this house is going to be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents of Marshfield, visitors. 7, the requested extension will not bring the use of structure into further violation or into violation of any of the dimensional regulations unless a variance is granted. It does not. That is a no-brainer. The extended or altered use of structure will not be substantially different in character. Well, this is where your judgment, your subjective judgment about what is being proposed is most relevant. Do you believe that it is obviously it's not the same as what exists today, but is it so substantially different in character that you can't permit it? That's your question. Then the last 2 are the extended or altered use of structure will not be more detrimental or objectionable to the neighborhood. There is no specific definition of what a neighborhood is, but if I was to give you some examples, Blackmount, The Hills, Green Harbor, Old Wrexham, New Wrexham, those are neighborhoods, and it's a community within a community in a defined area. Fields and Ocean Bluff, those are neighborhoods. Okay, they're also villages, but they're maybe if you don't look at if you look at it more like Blackmount, then you know what I'm talking about in terms of a neighborhood. So, and will not be more detrimental or objectionable to the neighborhood. That doesn't mean if a neighbor doesn't like it, that qualifies that. It just means that it is so significantly bad or objectionable that the board, thinking about how this applies town-wide, believes that this can't be proposed there. And lastly, the extended or altered use of structure does not cause a violation of Article 8 of the bylaw, okay, which is, a different provision altogether, which it does not. So hopefully that's helpful for you.
Thank you, Bob. Do you want to keep him on?
Yeah, just for a second. Any specific questions from the board for Bob? That was pretty self-explanatory. well, it's still up for discretion, but, no? We
I
may
have
need,
to step out for a minute.
yep,
All right.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. So, we were at number 1, and then we went to number 2. And then Mark had some comments in reference to the public. The use or structure is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare. Do we want further discussion in regards to this?
So it's the structure, not the use.
Use or structure?
So we're talking about structure, probably just clarify.
Well, the use is obvious.
Right.
Right.
Use
So we're
is-
not really talking about use, it's the
Residential.
structure.
So is the structure desirable? And I think that's one of the hot buttons here with the abutters, right? So,
What's with the abutters, but are we asking,
So like Bob said, it is to some, but not to others.
But he clarified also, it's not just the street, it's the neighborhood, it's the district.
It
the
is
public
the public.
convenience? The public.
Yeah.
It's not, in that particular case, we're not talking about,
We're talking about the R3 district.
right.
but the whole town's not here, the abutters are here. So with due respect to the abutters, we should talk about it.
Right.
Does anybody believe that it's not desirable to the public or the welfare of the public?
I believe
can-
what's there is not desirable to the public. I think
But what
that,
they're proposing?
I think it's, is it large? Yes. Is it better looking than what's there? Yeah, I think it's desirable. It's not far off from other homes that are in the district that have been amended in size and what have you. So I think it is desirable. I don't have an issue with it.
Steve?
I don't know, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, yeah, I understand it's big, but there's nothing really prohibiting big as long as it's within the parameters of everything else. So I understand the abutters' issues with respect to the size of it, but there's nothing that's prohibiting them from putting something of that size on that lot. And it's hard for us, it would be hard for me then to say, oh, I don't agree, but, I mean, I understand the issue. I understand what the abutters who are opposed to it issues are with the size of it, but is there anything specifically prohibiting us from approving something of this size as long as it, you know, as amended here tonight? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I mean, I agree that you go around town, you see some of these big monstrosities that don't seem to fit, or they're twice as big as something else, but if they're not prohibited by our bylaw from doing that, then, so I'm not sure that.
So you're still, we'll have to go back to number 2 for you as well.
Maybe, but I mean, what prohibits us from just saying it's too big? I don't think there's anything in our bylaws that allows us to say, hey, it's too big, it doesn't fit there, if it fits with everything else like the building commissioner says. You know? But I understand what the issue, and I see it around town, so how'd that go in? But, I mean, there's nothing in the bylaws that prohibits it. And there's a way to change that. Everybody in the public can do that any way they want. You know?
So is it
but,
the type of house?
But right now, I don't
Like-
think anyone has.
That would fall into this category right now, right?
They are
Because of-
meeting the density requirement, correct?
Yeah.
And the
we'll
space,
address that.
what was the amount of open space on the lot itself,
They're allowed
Andrew?
40% coverage, right?
And they
Andrew?
were, Andrew, can you just help us with the space?
They were allowed 40% coverage in their,
Unless we
what?
pulled it up, I could look at,
40% lot
on the site, on that key. And they're at,
There are town bylaws that have big home reviews where there's a separate step that people have to take if they're expanding their home.
In some
to
towns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we don't
Those-
have that.
We don't have that.
We do not.
They're more design reviews, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, and we don't have that.
If we did, it would be a different discussion, but
correct.
we're not there.
Putting it out there for them if they want to
Yeah.
do a town meeting warrant. That's
We're not in a position to say to you, go shrink your addition as long as you fit the criteria.
Right.
Then I think there's someone from the public who's raised their hand.
I'm sorry, this meeting is closed.
I read that. That density was in Grady's paperwork here somewhere.
Are you just looking for confirmation that they're at the 40?
Yeah, they're at 22%, the applicant.
Yeah, they're at 22, right, verse 40, right.
Okay.
Allowed 40.
Okay. All right. Some of,
So do we want to vote on a determination on number 2?
I think that we're at that point.
Okay.
I had some notes in Emmons versus Board of Appeals of Uxbridge, 27 Mass Appellate Court, 630, 632 to 636 of 1989. The appeals court specifically held that the special permit device may be used to fine-tune dimensional standards in particular situations, but that doesn't. And then the Supreme Court held invalid the town's bylaw used to determine if it's not offensive or detrimental to the neighborhood. I'm going to just pass this down. I don't know if this has anything to do with what we're talking about. You two-
Yeah,
Can you two just read that paragraph for me? I think then at this point with number 2, are we prepared to move forward, or do you need more time to think about it, Steve?
No, I think I could move
Okay. There's quite a lot there.
Might I correct a
Does it-
misspoken statement?
Not at this moment.
Understood.
I'm sorry? Essentially says that language is, it says that the language we're operating on is inappropriate, but that's because it's so vague.
It's very vague. A lot of this is,
Well, we're the finders of fact right now.
Right.
And we're the ones who are going to determine right now whether or
based on all
not.
the information that we have. So we have an abutter that argued that the information that was presented to the board was incomplete, for example. That it did not answer her questions, that the applicant was evasive.
We're talking about number 2.
We are talking about number 2. So whether or not we have the information in front of us, I believe that what I saw was thorough, but I wasn't specifically working on the nitty-gritty of every question that she had along. So
Why don't we just go through and,
Are we on 2 still?
we are
Yeah.
on 2. To your thoughts, Chris?
I'm not going to repeat everything everybody just said. In
No,
essence,
but-
what Steve and Mark said is we're not in a position to pass judgment on how big or little a house is as long as it's within the regulations that we work with. So as to 2, I think it's, with reservations that we've already discussed, I think it's affirmative.
Okay.
That's my position on
And
2.
how do you feel?
I feel the same, I'm ready.
Okay, then
Moving on.
Okay.
I as well, although I did like Bob's recommendation of conditioning for an as-built once it's
An
complete.
as-built, and then you did comment later on conditioning, which supported your questioning in that line of thinking. So we'll work towards that at the end.
To having, as far as the in-law setup?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll work on that wordage when we get to it.
Okay.
So number
Okay,
3.
so right now, before we move on, for number 2.
Aye.
Aye. Lynn Fiddler, aye.
Heidi, aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye, Steve Haney.
I just have a question. So at this point,
I'm sorry, we're closed.
We can't go.
So number 3, traffic.
Moving on to number 3.
Scroll back a little bit,
Can you scroll
Andrew.
that down, Andrew?
Andrew, can you scroll down a little bit? Do you mind, Nancy? go. 3.
It's
Right there.
freezing in here.
One more,
The
one
other
more
way.
back up.
Right
There you
there.
go. Nope, wrong direction.
Thank you. Except for now we can't.
No,
see
we gotta go to
number
3.
Go back up, huh?
Back up?
Yeah.
We gotta just show 3 traffic.
Any questions on 3?
I don't.
Any questions on 3? Not further create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. Talked about the parking for the site, and I'm satisfied with that. Chris?
Aye.
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 Number 4. Town council, and I'm in agreement. Number 4 has already been addressed.
We've already been addressed. We
Yep.
received a letter that it would not be, I would vote aye on that,
Thank you.
being satisfied.
Larry Keane, aye.
Linford, aye.
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 Okay. Any special regulations for use of structure as set forth in Article 12 are fulfilled. Article 12, let's find Article 12, make sure we are all on the same page.
There's anything here. I don't think it's applicable.
There's questions about lot coverage, the lot coverage calculations
Yes,
and whether they're correct or not.
okay.
And so
We may not vote tonight if I
okay,
don't have
I'd
all
like
the
to,
information.
I think we should just review that one again, make sure that that's,
Should we just reopen and get both sides on lot coverage real quick?
I think that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's
fine.
It's just
do it.
to
So can we-
reopen and
Can we
discuss
just
the lot coverage. Thing.
check
Yeah.
off number 5
Yeah.
for the board, Article 12?
Mhm.
Special regulations. Yeah, right one.
Here.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Talking about environmental.
Yeah,
Do you want to just go through all of them and then come back to lot coverage?
Yeah.
yeah, I think that makes the most
All right.
sense.
So we all agree there's no environmental impact on
Is-
this?
Yeah, number 12 is, Article 12. I'm okay.
Yep.
Chris, number 5.
Fine on Article, on
Fulfilled.
5, fulfilled.
Larry Keane, fine.
Fulfilled.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 6, the requested extension or alteration of use or structure will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining zones, nor be detrimental to health, morals, or welfare. So this is number 6, is referencing R3, the district of R3. So this particular edition is not, is not the first of many large additions that we have seen in this district, correct?
Correct. I think 2, 6, and 8 could have been combined into one paragraph,
They
but
seem,
it's my opinion. I'll
town
have to-
meeting.
have to take it to town meeting, yeah.
Added to Greg's list.
Mhm.
I think we're on one discussion, Mark. 2, 6, 8, and
Yeah. 2,
9
6.
even.
Yes, but this is what we're working with, so.
Let's
Number
finish 6.
Any specifics to that other than what I just commented on? Do we have any other ones?
I think we've beat it up
We
pretty
beat
good.
that one up, okay.
Let's vote on it.
Chris?
You don't want to?
No.
Number
Aye.
6.
Aye.
And to the aye.
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 Aye. Okay, the request extension or alteration of the use or structure will not bring the use or structure into violation of or further violation of regulations set forth in Article 6, Table of Dimensional and Density Regulations, unless a variance is also granted subject to provisions of 305-10.11 of this bylaw. So 7 is okay as well as,
Subject to
Subject to the-
lot coverage.
Yeah, we're gonna reopen that. We can table that for now and reopen it
Yeah.
to hear from the parties.
Yes. Okay. Number 8. Wish I had my highlighter. The extended or altered use or structure will not be substantially different in character. I haven't seen any notes on this one. Number
Oh,
8.
from him? That was the board.
Subjective.
Get an extra piece of paper from me.
So it's the 7/7/21 one.
So I have,
Is this 8? Which one's Ed? I don't know what he's doing.
we're like, yeah, just scooch it over. So this is what, one of the pictures of the existing, set of pictures of the existing house. Right?
Yeah. What's on the
So-
other side?
Here we go, this is just the, okay? So we have that. All right, I'm gonna hand those down. This is the existing house.
That's not him, is that?
And then I have in front of me, July 1st, 2021, an in-depth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-page letter from Jackie Davis with the Appendix A, comments on the May 5th, 2021 application to the zoning board. You guys all have this?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay.
So we're talking about number 8,
Yep.
not substantially different in character, right? Taking a single-family
Yeah.
home and making a larger single-family home.
Right. So the integrity or character of the district. So if we're looking at what is there and is existing, and the proposed house, I'm not exactly sure that this is accurate, but this is what Jackie had sent us, Jackie Davis had sent us.
I mean, we have the actual
We have
one
the
in-
actual.
Right, that's what we should be
Andrew,
looking at.
can you put up the actual final architectural renderings of this property, please? So in this letter, it says, please provide calculations, and we'll get to that. Footprint of the existing structure.
Yeah.
Written response is to maximum building coverage, minimum open space areas do not equal the lot area. Please update the disposition of the existing sheds.
So the most recent one.
Disposition, okay.
don't know if we go back to the,
Thank you. We're on number 8.
Well, to be
Yes,
clear,
Renee.
since you asked the question, the sheds are all going away.
The sheds are going away, so,
I'll bring it, and the other one is gone, the, what is it, the garage thing?
right. Andrew, when you have the applicants for your building permit do your as-built, do you do it prior to frame at foundation?
Yeah,
Just
so we
wait till the
generally
very
will
end.
require a foundation as-built to verify that, it's in the right location, before they start
Right.
going
And
any further.
especially
Yeah.
okay, I knew that was, I wasn't sure if it was still your house.
I can call back in if you keep hearing. I still don't think we can hear him.
So, based on character, when we're looking at this, the end result or as proposed and the original, is the board comfortable with number 8 and that answer? Going forward. I want to start down this end. Steve Feeney? Number 8?
Yeah, I think it's okay. Yes.
Yay.
For the New England style home.
New England style home, similar to other additions that we have seen.
I'm satisfied.
It's the same basic design that we've seen in 10 other applications. It's within the
In this
district.
district, yes.
Peaks, valleys, dormers.
Okay, can we move to number 9? We're just reading. Chris, can you read number 9?
Sure, the extended or altered use of structure will not be more detrimental or objectionable to the neighborhood. That's number 9.
Neighborhood. So then, neighborhood was referenced as Blackmount, Wrexham, different areas that we all have.
Community, right.
Community areas. So in this particular area, the applicant did show us some picture. I know there was an email of 14 pages. I know that the abutters that were not in favor argued that they weren't on their street, but did you get a chance to look at those?
Yep, so there
And
was.
Are they in?
They're on that street and they were in the area, but it didn't go to, I mean, it's
It's not
cottages. in
North
it.
Hill or?
No, it is, there's a lot of cottages, but there's a lot of people due to, flooding and what have you, had to build their houses up. So there was a lot of bigger homes that have been going up. And so there's both sides, there's both there, it's a mixed bag.
Right.
In that specific area, if you're talking about, that whole space over there, then it's not a lot different from what's going on right now.
In remodeling,
Right. From what we've seen.
Okay. So number 9, is the board prepared to move forward with?
I'm prepared to move forward.
Start down there again.
Aye.
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 And for the aye.
I'm satisfied.
Aye.
Okay. So number 10, significantly.
Can we put the questions back up?
Yeah.
Andrew, can we get the questions back up?
Number 10, the extended or altered use of structure does not cause a violation or further violation of Article 8 of this bylaw.
That's off-street parking.
So Bob's comment was significantly bad or objectionable. Do you feel this addition, the use of it or the structure itself? I think now we're talking about the structure itself, maybe?
Oh, we're talking
Or the-
about parking. Article 8 is
Article
parking.
8, okay.
So a dwelling, single or two-family units, 2 per unit. So they've
They
proven
meet that.
they meet that, yeah.
3 spaces,
Yep.
right? So number 10,
I'm satisfied.
I am also.
and for their aye.
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 Okay, so we've made it through 305-10.12, permit for extension or alteration of non-conforming use or structure.
So we're gonna close, reopen, right?
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion to reopen for one topic alone, and that is to use.
Can you just ask Bob something?
Just a second.
Yes, so should he call back in, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm gonna call Bob now.
All right. Thank you. I just want to make sure we do it right. Andrew, he's calling you.
What?
He's going to call you. So get off your phone.
Oh, I was just texting him, asking why he sent me right to voicemail.
Get off his line.
All right, hi Bob.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, is it reverberating there?
No, we're okay. We just reopened,
Did we?
correct?
Okay, you're trying to determine whether there is 30% of this lot that's open space. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so there's questions about the lot coverage calculations.
We need to go back to
And
number 7.
I can't see the gentleman who's the engineer because he's wearing his hat. But the gentleman who's wearing the hat, is he able to tell us what the square footage of the home and the attached area of the home is?
Andrew, can you reiterate that to the board so we can all hear that?
We have to reopen.
Yeah, I just didn't hear everything he
Okay,
said.
so Bob's talking about
So he's,
what he wants to know is if
I want to know the footprint of the structure.
the footprint of the structure.
We need
So
to
and-
reopen.
And the way that's defined as maximum building area is the horizontal extent of the building, the foundation. It does not include cornices, eaves, gutters, chimneys, unenclosed porches, bay windows, balconies, or terraces. It's just the foundation of the structure.
It also doesn't include driveways or walkways or any of those things.
Right. Because there's two things. There's the maximum building area, and that's the 40% calculation. You can't go anything above 40% of the lot with the building area. And then there's the minimum open space requirement, which is a minimum of 30% of the lot has to be open space. So there's a question about the accuracy of those calculations. And
Well, it's pretty fair to say that open space, which is a defined term under section 305-201, is the area of a lot unoccupied by buildings, unobstructed to the sky by man-made objects, but it doesn't include walks, swimming pools, terraced areas, not devoted to streets, driveways, off-street parking, loading spaces expressed as a percentage of total lot area. So it's the footprint of the structure. If we know the lot is in excess of 8,000 and the footprint is, I heard someone say a figure of 1,750, then clearly there is sufficient open space in this lot.
I concur with Bob. If we got into the minutia of that calculations, even just by, my general calculations, it fits the 40 and 30%. It may not. we could go into the exact minutia of the exact percentages, but it's
Can
clear.
the engineer make that calculation so we have an exact figure?
Well, we
He
still
feels he
need,
has, he's put it on the stamped plan.
Why do we think it's wrong?
because the abutter does.
One of the abutters.
We're closed.
Well, is the abutter had a engineer or a surveyor perform a calculation to give us a different figure?
You already do that?
Just pause him for a second, reopen.
I mean, someone's put their professional stamp on this plan and provided a zoning chart with specific calculations. And to suggest that it's wrong, someone needs to explain why it's wrong and how it's wrong, not just say it's wrong.
Right. So let's reopen and give her a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, so Bob, can you hear me?
Yes.
I looked at this, I think at the very first hearing, and it was clear that it was, by a layman's eye, okay. But I want to make sure that the public and the board has that actual calculation. So I'm going to make a motion to reopen for specifically no abutter comments, but just solely for the reasoning that you just described.
Well, I think if you open it up, to both sides so they can give you a specific answer to the specific question that the board wants. And I don't think you should restrict it to one side or the other. I'd hear from the applicant first, hear from whoever is questioning it. But I don't think you could just say it's wrong. You have to say what's wrong and how that wrong is calculated in order to substantiate that.
So what if it becomes one person against the other, as far as then we just take that
Well,
out?
we have a registered professional engineer or a registered professional surveyor there that has put his or her stamp on these plans. And I would take the word of a professional engineer that stamps it in terms of the calculations, unless we see some plain error in the calculation. I mean, we can measure out. I mean, I could sit there and figure it out if you measure the blocks of the house, what the square footage of those blocks are. And I could also calculate the lot area, because it's also rectangular. There might be a few angles, but the reality is it should be able to be calculated fairly reliably.
Okay. All right, I'm going to make a motion to reopen this hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Heidi Conway. All those in favor?
Aye, Chris Belzos.
Larry Keane, aye.
Lynn Fiddler, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Mark Stiles, aye.
All righty. So I am going to allow you an opportunity to address what town council just asked to clarify?
Sure.
Okay.
As he has already mentioned, there is a specific definition for open space, which we followed in our calculations, as well as a specific calculation for building area, which I'll recite as the aggregate of the maximum horizontal plane area of all buildings on a lot measured to their outer walls, but exclusive of cornices, eaves, gutters, chimneys, unenclosed porches, bay windows, balconies, and terraces. And building coverage is specifically a building area expressed as a percentage of the total lot area. And a building is a combination of any materials, whether portable or fixed, having a roof and enclosed within exterior walls or firewalls, built to form a structure for the shelter of persons, animals, or property. For the purposes of this definition, roof shall include an awning or any similar covering, whether or not permanent in nature. In my calculation, I did, as I believe was brought up by Jacqueline Davis, I did include the shed areas in my calculation, because by that definition, they are a building. They are a combination of materials with a roof for the storage of property. So, if anything, my building calculation includes everything on the lot and excludes nothing as per that definition. I did attempt just now to access my phone to see if I can get in and get you the exact number off of our drawing, but I'm locked out because I'm still remoted in at home, so I cannot give you the exact calculations at this time.
Are you an engineer, a registered engineer?
I am not.
Do you have the technical or professional ability to give us that information?
I could calculate it per the plan as it is a scaled plan.
That wasn't my question.
I know that.
Do you have someone that is available to answer that question?
I could call the PLS, but I think he's probably not going to answer because he's on vacation at the moment.
Okay.
He's the gentleman that stamps the plan.
What?
Just a second.
Oh. Is the plan stamped?
Yes.
It is.
Can we just put it up?
I mean, why aren't we putting that up?
And while we're at it, why don't we hear from why it's not?
Yeah. So while Andrew Stewart puts the actual plan itself up on the screen for us, there was a comment from a specific person in the audience, and would that person care to be heard?
Yes, please. Jackie Davis, 19 Secana Ave. So, as I mentioned earlier, the plans were originally stamped by Mr. Grady. He's removed his PE seal from these plans, and now we just have Mr. Bennett's PLS seal. The square footage on the survey does not match the square footage on the lot lines. And as I mentioned in the first meeting, when I did these calculations of the 2 sheds and the existing structure, I did not get the 14, 15 for the existing building coverage. So this has been a constant comment that I've had at every meeting, that I've raised at every meeting. And I didn't provide these comments to just be ignored. I've asked, and I explicitly wrote, please provide calculations that have been through a documented QA/QC process, because I've gone through it at work, and I've had engineers at work also check my calculations, and they don't match. And that's why I'm asking. I'd like to see the math here.
And Jackie, do you have I asked this gentleman the same question, do you have a degree or some sort of a professional licensing that you're here in front of this board acting in that capacity?
I have 2 engineering degrees, and I'm here not in front of any engineering capacity. I'm here as an abutter, that I'd like my questions heard.
Okay, thank you.
Like, I don't,
So did you do a calculation that you can share with us?
yeah, I did it, but this isn't my job. I shouldn't be the one here. I'm not the one getting paid to review these plans, to do this work. Like, this is, the fact that I raised the question, there should be some common decency to say, okay, let's take her question at face value and figure it out. Not once has this happened. I had numerous comments in here that were just completely ignored. Actual comments that actually make and have, like, this, why is the lot size different than the deed plans? Like, these are questions that, as an abutter, I need to know. Like, where is this missing 250 square feet coming from? And completely ignored. Why are the bearings and distances wrong between these plans and what's on the lot plans? Like, there's a lot that's wrong. The town planner provided comments on other things that were wrong on these plans. Like, I can't do all of this review. How many other plans have gone through and what's being checked? There's no calculations. There's the few calculations for the height of the building. And that's it. That's the only thing that's shown on here.
So what do your calculations conclude?
I'm not going through it until I have to open my computer and go through
Lois.
it. But it's,
I mean, what are you doing?
So
I-
we're giving you the opportunity to explain where you're coming up with this. So this is your option to either, yes, give us some calculations that you have so that we can address it. That's why we reopened it. If you cannot do that, we're going to close and we're going to move forward. So are you able to do that?
yes, I can.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
To me, it's why am I going through this effort when at the end of the day, you didn't answer my questions in the first place, to just be ignored and this is going to be passed anyways.
So we are deliberating right now, and that's the process that we go by. We thought first we would answer the 10 questions. We are deliberating this situation. We came up with something that we are concerned about. We opened it back up because you had a question. So now we'd like you to answer it, or we need to close and move on so we can continue to deliberate and make a decision. We have not made a decision. That's what the whole
I'll answer it.
process is. That's what we're doing now. So please give us your answer.
Is the person who actually stamped the plans also going to make a statement? 'Cause that's
You
who
have
should-
something you would like to add?
The person that's here that the person that stamped the plan should also be the one answering these questions.
Thank you. Jacqueline, do you have something to add?
Andrew, we went over this. Are we talking about, we don't always have every single calculation specifically identified for the board, but we do have a plan with a stamp on it. This plan has a stamp on it, correct?
Yep.
In your judgment, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but in your judgment, in this particular case, based on the footprint and the explanation and our bylaws, do you feel that there is any gray area that this does not meet the requirements of that, what we're trying to get to?
So I'm licensed by the state of Massachusetts, have multiple licenses for the state of Massachusetts. So I know what we go through. I know what professional and civil engineers and architects go through to get their stamp. I know how seriously the state takes it. So I don't think that Grady Consulting would be, any of their engineers or land surveyors would be putting their stamp on a plan to be submitted to any town, let alone Marshfield, lightly. So in that regard, I do feel that we can accept their stamp plan based on what my rudimentary calculations here. I feel that they are under 40% maximum building area, and that there is more than 30% open space coverage. As far as the exact calculations, whether the exact calculations are absolutely correct, I'm not prepared to make that determination, but I do feel comfortable that they meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you. So based on board members, based on that explanation, and I understand we just put Mrs. Davis on the spot to create or come up with. Yep, and it was brought up by her, so I feel like, how are we prepared to go forward without having the exact calculations and it's described with this discrepancy?
Now, with the exact calculation.
Andrew, it's Bob Galvin.
Yeah.
Bob wants to talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're proceeding with the assumption that the coverage met the requirements, but now that somebody is bringing it up to our attention, then they should have the right to challenge that.
I'd like to see an exact calculation, but also would that be something that at the time of pulling a building
to what Bob
permit,
has to
it
say.
would be calculated, it would need to be satisfy a building permit? We're clearly below the limits, and now at the point
Well,
of,
there's someone who says we're not, right? Or
we
they
have a stamped engineered plan here that, as
right.
Mr. Galvin
Don't they have to
pointed
be
out,
held to
But I
that?
think, but I
is a
think
rule.
Bob wants- all right. Go ahead, Bob.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the board has reopened the hearing to have a specific testimony on the lot coverage question and the maximum building coverage question. The engineer or surveyor has come forth with specific calculations, and all you've heard in rebuttal is that it's wrong. The board shouldn't presume that it's wrong unless there's an obvious error. The board should take any evidence that the abutter has that specifically leads to the conclusion that the maximum building coverage or open space coverage is wrong. And it's not, I heard someone suggesting that the board is ignoring a concern. The board has actually reopened the hearing to listen to evidence on whether there's an error. And it sounds to me like there is no credible evidence that there's an error.
Bob, Steve Fee, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So we as a board would be rely on that stamp even though that individual isn't here tonight, is that correct?
Yes.
And then two, say the abutter, so the abutter here would need to give us also a plan stamp that would contradict the one that we have, right? I mean,
Or a statement from a registered professional engineer or
Land surveyor.
or an engineer that suggests that there's an error in the calculation.
so that was what, a registered engineer or what?
A registered professional engineer, civil engineer, or land surveyor would be able to make those.
Professional land surveyor or registered professional engineer are the two calculations.
So that's what we
Or the
need
two
from the,
designations on which we rely upon for the accuracy of plans.
so that's what we need in writing from one of those three individuals tonight to back up her premise that the calculations are
Correct.
wrong.
The gentleman from Grady Consulting has put his reputation on the line and his stamp on the line, and he's indicating that these are the correct calculations. And someone has suggested they're wrong, but has never given us an explanation as to how those are wrong. And the board has now been put in an impossible situation of trying to disprove a negative without any information. You cannot presume that there's an error here unless it's an obvious mathematical error. And I haven't seen a single iota of evidence, or I haven't heard it, that indicates that that's present here.
And Bob, we're, as a board, able to use our common sense and basic math to look at a plan and make a determination if it appears to be accurate. Is that fair to say?
I couldn't hear all those words.
Chris was asking if it's fair to say that you can use your common sense to make these determinations?
Well, aside from the calculations, if you just calculate the block of a 15-foot by 8 house if you just do the calculations, you can clearly tell, even without being a mathematical expert, what the square footage of the structure itself is. And I don't think there's any suggestion that the lot area is wrong, so it clearly is under that 40%. And then the open space coverage is, I think, even clearer because it's everything other than what the structure is.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I
Yes.
suggest maybe we take a break and allow the abutter to maybe come up with a calculation? I mean, it's just, that's the only issue we're waiting on, right?
I think that it's fair to
Rather than rush
allow,
her
I mean, I've been trying to go through specifics, you know, safeguarding the integrity of the neighborhood, different things, and looking for an actual, but it is the footprint. She, on page 11, her explained how the building coverage areas have been calculated for the existing and proposed. The footprint is X, I can read it, but. So she was questioning the 15 square feet and how was it calculated. Provide a written response, but as Bob was clear and.
There's another way to handle it too, and that's just to say that your finding is based upon the express indication that the square footage of the house is X number of square feet, and the lot area is 8625. And, you know, they've given you a calculation in their zoning chart that says what the open space is, and that. And if it's different, then the applicant will be responsible to, you know, address the situation.
That's the safest way to do it, I
That
think.
is probably the safest or most reasonable without putting the public or the abutter on the spot to come up with her.
Grady's standing by, you're standing by whatever you submitted, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I will supplement with, if we were to take a recess, I could call home, have my wife log me out and provide you with those numbers from our drawing.
So I think it's smart, let's take a breather. I don't want anybody, I think we need at least 5 minutes, maybe 10.
How much,
Does
what
everybody
other
need-
time they need?
How much time would you
I'm
need?
gonna say I might need 15 because I'm messing around on my cell phone.
You
and-
got 10, okay.
Okay. Is that enough time?
Enough time.
Okay, so let's take a 8:50, let's come back to this at 8:30 and take a short recess. Do I have a second? Just take a short recess.
Yeah, sure. Second.
All those in favor?
Move a second.
I don't think we need 15.
One Fiddler, aye. Heidi?
Aye.
Mark? Alrighty, it is 8:30. This is the ZBA, Monday, July 19th, 2021. It is currently 8:30. We have a 10-minute recess. We are 10:15, thereabouts. We are working on case 21-41. Currently, we are reopened, and I would like to give the applicant an opportunity to finish up the conversations we had before. Do I have a second to reopen?
Oh, second, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And for the aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, we're good to go.
So for my existing building coverage calculation, I have the existing dwelling at 900 square feet, the enclosed porch at 160 square feet, the smaller of the two sheds at 115 square feet, and the larger of the two sheds at 240 square feet, all totaling 1,415 square feet.
What
I
is it?
did not, 1,415 square feet. I did not manage to complete my calculation on the proposed area, but it is approximately 800 square feet less, about, call it 35, 40 square feet worth of existing house it's attached to. I could continue those calculations if you'd like.
Please.
Sure.
Give the existing. Yeah.
Did you read that? Okay, so we've been over this, but I'm going to just say it again. So the plan that was stamped by Timothy Bennett dated July 7th, 2021 has the maximum building coverage at 1918 square feet or 22.2%. Minimum open space, 6,586 square feet or 76.3%. Is that correct?
Well, let him finish.
I'm sorry, I was still carrying on
Oh,
with
I'm
the
sorry.
calculations. I didn't hear anything
Oh,
you
I'm
said. I
sorry.
apologize.
That's fine. We'll hold on.
I can stop here though if you want to restate.
No,
what you
keep
just-
going. I know
Okay.
how it is to do math. Any comments from the public as we go forward and give him the opportunity to finish his calculations?
Yeah, the discrepancy in the lot size. So the lot area is 8625, but in the deeds, it's 8875.
8875. In the deed? Thank you.
Lynn, does the abutter have, does the,
You can ask her specifically.
ma'am, did you come up with a number for the minimum, the maximum building coverage?
I had 18% and 25%.
Say it again?
18% for existing and 25 for proposed.
So by your number that you calculated, we said 75% open space?
I'm sorry, but the
She's just, I'm asking her.
I did not.
I'm asking the abutter, because she
Oh,
did the
sorry.
calculation.
Just like, wait a minute.
You said building coverage is 25%
Yeah.
by your calculation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that based on the 8,800 square feet or the 8,600 square feet?
I had it backwards.
I don't understand why we need to hear any more from him.
You're all
The
set.
abutters version is by itself.
by itself is within the realm of our, yeah. Okay. Any further comments?
No, it's in the
The abutters' response was in line with the requirements as identified in our, share the weapon with on the record.
I can respond to the area calculations as well as the deed area if the board would
I'd like to hear the deed.
Go ahead.
Which one would you like first?
Deed.
Deed, okay, so the deed, yes, the deed area, I believe I specifically went over this at the last hearing. I believe I remember apologizing for not having this plan with me printed out in full size. The reason that the deed shows a different area is because there was a roadway taking at which approximately 250 square feet, it looks like, of every single lot, or even 300 square feet of every lot on Secana Ave on that same side of the road was taken by the county commissioners in 1941. Predates the deed description, and that would be the missing potentially 500 or even 600 square feet as according to the deed area.
Okay.
As far as the area calculations, my proposed is rough, but I'm coming up with about 1860 on my proposed area coverage, which is a little bit underneath what is shown on the plan. And that is probably because I don't have, wasn't able to complete going through the drawing and getting specific numbers on that. So that calculation for the proposed was based off of the two dimensions of the proposed square foundation for the addition, plus a 36 square foot area, which would be the approximate 6 by 6 area in which it overlaps with the existing structure, as well as removing both sheds and including both overhangs, the one near the driveway and the one on the frontage side of the existing structure that are proposed.
And can you convert that for the public to a percentage?
Absolutely. $625. $1,860 square feet of the 8,625 is 21.5%. And that is smaller than what we have proposed on the plan.
And the percentage for minimum open space? Is what?
Is 30%. We are proposing 76.3% open space.
76.3, okay.
There was confusion after the hearing was closed. That's what I wanted to correct. Forgive me, board members, for correcting you, of all people. But you had asked about the open space, and then you referred to the numbers for the building coverage. They are not the same, and they are
Right.
not opposites.
So the maximum building coverage is to be at 40%, minimum open space at 30%,
Correct.
and you have,
22.2% building coverage proposed, and 76.3 open space proposed.
okay, so we can move on. Is the board comfortable to move on?
Yes.
All set? All right. I'd like to make a motion to close this hearing. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Winfield, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, folks. So we need to go back to number 7 in special permit now that we have an answer on that and clarify the board's feeling on number 7. And I need to read this stuff. Okay, request extension or alteration structure will not bring the use or structure into violation of or further violation. As set forth in Article 6, Table of Dimensional and Density Regulations, unless a variance is also granted subject to the provisions of 305-10.11 of this bylaw. Is the board comfortable moving forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Affirmative, you're in agreement that this is accepted?
Absolutely.
Lynn Fiddler, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you, board. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Bob. Let's move forward. So, this board is here for accordance with 10.12. I'd like to ask the board, are there any specific conditions that the board feels we need to address for this particular project? Taking into consideration some of the comments from the public as we're going forward. Chris had mentioned, Chris and Larry had mentioned the single family. So-
I would propose that we incorporate as a special condition the applicant's pledge not to seek a change in use or accessory apartment going forward. If the law changes, then we'll deal
The
with that.
bylaw, just put it in there if the bylaw of the state or law prohibits it, you know, if it changes.
I'm not sure we even need the language. The law will speak for itself.
Well, just in case, so just because if it's, that's what Bob suggested, so that's why I'm saying that.
We don't know what the law's going to say, so I'm not sure we need to put the verbiage in, but I'm not objecting to it.
So pledge not to seek a change in use.
I don't think
Is there anything
Or
you'd like
accessory
to,
apartment.
for an accessory?
Is that something we can put in?
I know, I just.
I don't think it is, that we can specifically prohibit.
Bob had stated that we could, that if
Did he say that?
So we can,
Bob on
we
board
can
again?
take a vote on it.
Yeah, I mean, if he said that, I thought, I heard different.
I heard something different as well.
No, the second part of his statement was that we could. That's the way I heard it.
He said two-family. Bob said two-family, that you could mention it in a special condition that it could not become a two-family, but he didn't use the word accessory apartment.
Okay. Well, we can check with him again. That'd be my proposal.
Well, I'd hate to prohibit that if then later the zoning changes,
Two-family
right?
and/or,
then
right.
you've
It's a two-family.
allowed them something that they might otherwise be lawfully
Right, I
allowed to
think
do
that's why
in
he
the
said
future.
unless it
It
changes.
would have, yeah.
I don't know if we
it would
want to even
be-
go there.
Because Marshall doesn't have two families, they're not allowed to have two families, right?
Right, but if something were to change,
Right, that's what
then
I'm saying.
they've already restricted themselves.
So pledge not to s-
Unless
Unless
the law
there's
changes,
a
that's
way
what he
to
Could we change
carve
that
language
verbiage
around
that
that.
Can I
The
add
state could change
one
it.
other thing about the accessory apartment bylaw is there are minimum square footages that you have to have in order to
It doesn't
have an
meet it.
accessory apartment, and for an R3 you have to have a minimum of 10,000 square
Right.
feet for an accessory apartment. So they would require a variance anyway to get their accessory apartment. So that's, pretty tall order.
And we talked about that
Yeah.
while the meeting was open as well.
And if they're doing it unlawfully, then it's up to the zoning officer to enforce that, right?
Correct. But I wouldn't be opposed to saying, not a two-family,
That's-
if you'd like to, for the board to.
If the board's comfortable with that, an acknowledgement of the abutters' concerns, that seems to be the sticking point.
Okay.
We can address that.
So, as.
But as Mark had pointed out too, we put something in there that if the state changes the law, that would be.
Does it become
that'd be an
just,
issue.
does it not matter anymore if the state changes it, or?
Not if they've restricted their property.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I don't know that we should.
Yeah, I don't think that would be fair
I think we should
if
be
they
touching
change it statewide.
I'm gonna vote no.
Yeah, that if we can put something in there that if
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That too.
zoning
He
changes.
doesn't, they don't
So-
need it right now anyway.
Or-
so we don't
Yeah,
even-
two families are not allowed in Marshfield.
Right.
It would require a bylaw change at town meeting in order for that to happen. So again, a very tall order.
And for an accessory, they don't have the square footage anyways.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, but
We're
let's-
dealing with a single family that the zoning officer would enforce if it was
Yep.
being used for something other than that.
Well, let's, for the benefit of the board and public, just take a vote on whether we should keep that condition or we should.
Or maybe we just
Dismiss
note,
it. We're just-
maybe we just make as part of the record the pledge of the,
Say what?
maybe we make as part of the record the pledge of the petitioner. And that covers it. So any future board understands that there was a representation made to this board, enforceable or not in the future, at least at that
Well,
point there.
she was,
They've
Correct.
made those representations already. I mean, if there's
I
a,
understand what I'm saying is, for future reference to some different 6 or 7 member board, that at least they understand that there was a pledge made at this point, upon which we rely.
so we
Doesn't
can,
hold anybody, it just, it's informative.
Right, so in the,
it's on-
in the
it's on-
decision
I understand that
itself-
we're doing this for optics to help the abutters feel better about it, but what we're doing is meaningless, right? So if they came in and said, I want to have a two-family, they'd have to come in front of the zoning board for change, which would be rejected. And as Andrew pointed out, if they came in for an accessory dwelling, they'd be rejected based on the fact they don't have enough square footage as it
Unless they
stands.
could get a
Unless they got a
variance.
variance.
As it stands right now, right.
Which they'd have to qualify for that.
Correct. But again, if the issue is to inform some future board of our thought process, I don't think that's unfair.
I think
So in the decisions, just for a
We-
second, so
yes.
in the decisions, Nancy reiterates the feelings of the board as far as certain comments that were made.
She does? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
She
every
does, right.
decision has a reason for the decision,
Right.
and I rely on that heavily when I'm doing zoning enforcement.
Sometimes
I
there
rely
are
on the
very many.
reason for the decision very heavily.
It
yeah.
doesn't mean that we voted on it, but
It was a concern.
But it describes the
Yeah.
concerns, it describes the board's feelings on certain issues, and describes kind of the particulars of, the crux points of the decision.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with that then.
Yeah.
okay,
Sure.
that worked for you guys? And
But
you're
we-
welcome to look at the decision before. Okay. So the as-built is taken care of in the building department. Are there any specific fences, safety, things for the neighborhood during construction, anything like that that are important for this neighborhood? We typically don't do that, but in this
I would
particular-
defer to Andrew on that in the building department.
Yeah,
You take care of all the safety.
the foundation, there's a code article for foundation drainage, and it prohibits any unnecessary runoff or into abutting properties during construction. So if there is any of that going on, you inform me immediately, and I will issue them a violation for that.
And the work
Ask them to correct it, and if they
schedule,
don't, they'll get a citation. Yep.
and will you just reiterate to the board the work schedule according to our bylaws? Can't be working on Sundays or?
No, there's nothing in the bylaws about work days or hours of
Okay.
yeah. Marshfield doesn't have a noise ordinance. We rely on the state kind of guidance for that.
Okay. All right. There was comment about the tree, and I think the applicant, the trees on the property, that is under her, that's not something that this board. Erosion control, we just talked about. We talked about the appliances. Okay, so I'm comfortable moving forward. Is the board comfortable moving forward to a vote?
Did you look at the other letter too? I just want to cover
any
our
other
butts,
things?
yeah. hold on.
There's a lot of information. Egan's.
Yeah.
Mom's decision. Bob will win 75% of this. Quite sure Bob's gonna win 75% of this decision.
Of the reason.
Huh?
He's gonna write 75% of
The decision.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a dick. This politician.
No.
Do you,
It's gonna be this.
what's that?
Something this big. No.
I eliminated that zoning review out of the building permit stuff. I just felt like it was bugging you down. It's not,
Yeah,
you know.
it's okay.
All right, I'm comfortable moving forward. I think that the bylaw asks us to consider the potential detrimental effects on the neighborhood and the town. And I feel like this particular project, we've gone through items 1 through 10 of the special permit. We've talked about conditions. We have identified the stamp. And the board is comfortable with allowing that stamp to hold its place. Any other comments before we vote? Okay, all right, let's make a motion.
So just one second. This is from Bob. That we're not
Maybe to
construing.
establish or not to construe as
We're not construing. You know what I mean?
Right,
Just to-
so this is, gets to what Chris was saying in the.
It's just different wording.
So the board can,
That can be stated in the decision, though.
That's what
right,
we're
so the
saying.
board we will include in our statement that this is, shall not be construed as our board authorizing an accessory apartment or two-family use, because it's simply not allowed currently in the town and under our bylaws. And that's really the crutch of what we're here, working through, so, all right. I'd like to make a motion to grant the special permit. Do I have a second? This is case 21-41, Donna and Edward Martinowski, and this is 25 Secaucet Avenue. All those in favor? Chris?
Yeah.
Chris?
Aye.
Aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Lynn Fiddler, aye.
Aye.
Mark Stiles, aye.
Okay, so we have voting member for this hearing, myself, Heidi, Mark, and Steve Feeney. It's voted
Is it
to
Chris,
grant.
right?
Chris, yes. To grant the special permit with a vote of 5-0. With no conditions. And that's it. I'd like to thank the board for their time. And we will see you on, what's the next? And currently, the 10th is.
Free snacks.
Bring snacks.
It's a tent.
15 new ones.
Thank you all
15 new
for coming in
ones.
for a special night.
Thank you.
You guys will have to go through before to see what we can lump together that will go
Thank you.
fast.
Can we do that?
Nancy Ross, thank you. You've been taking care of all this picture.
That's what I do. Paperwork.
So before we close the hearing, the meeting tonight, we have how many for the next hearing?
There are 15 new ones for the next hearing,
15 new
because
hearings.
we had to include the
I'm on
five from.
vacation.
And how many
I don't know, we've got,
What's
Such
the
a
date?
brag.
Webster,
Actually, I can
810.
know if I'm here the 10th.
Actually,
Webster's continued.
thank you.
I don't know what else is. Just doing it right now.
So Vining,
Fine, yeah, Webster Street.
Amesway, is that back on?
What?
Amesway?
Yeah, right, but they also, there's a new one that has to be advertised for Amesway again. This was supposed to be heard last week, but
So they won't be on the 10th?
no, they'll be on the 10th.
Oh, half of
They-
them.
Yeah, so they
Will be.
they were continued on their special permit. Their
Adding a variance.
variance was gonna be new last week, now it's gonna be new on August 10th. But I think, I know you guys did, I think for like 7 and 15 to 20 minutes once.
So I think
We're
that,
wizards.
I think that,
We
the
maybe,
Webster Street project, Bob had asked if the attorney could be, in the beginning, that project could
Go first?
Go first.
yep,
And then we'll try to get the special permits.
well, you know, yeah, because before you guys looked at it, and it's like, all right, this is a fairly simple special permit, whatever.
Yeah, so I think I'll probably have a conversation with Andrew that day, or probably on Monday, and make sure that we
And then
can
just
kind of
rearrange the
filter through the
agenda.
things that we think, and we'll put those up front. I'm recused from American Towers. Mark is are you recused from American Towers?
You're from, you're Vining, right? You're off on that?
Amesway, you recused from? So we'll have to get
make
that
sure.
all
Yeah,
figured
I will,
out and try to make it as easy as
Luckily, we got a couple weeks to do
yeah, and that might be something
I
else
know.
we want to rethink for next year, I think it's great that,
And I
it might
also,
not be working out for you guys to go to the one meeting in July and one meeting in August, if it's gonna
well,
turn into.
obviously, we just by technical
I just think it'll
problems
be
that
different
was.
next year. I don't-
The
we'll
only
find
thing
years
I would
before
say
doing
too
that.
is just getting, you know,
I'm not willing to give that up
commentary
right
from
now.
people coming to the building department. They're frustrated because it's having 2 months back to back with one meeting only is a huge gap of permits getting issued during the summer months when a lot of people are looking to get their permits issued. It might be worth looking at maybe doing one meeting in June and one meeting in August, you know, and having
there's-
2 in July, you know, or something like that, and instead of changing it up.
There was always,
I mean, we've been doing one
We would've
since
been
we started, but
fine. I
it's just
think
that we
that
had a couple
this text,
little ones that were tricky.
you want to head, we can head out.
Can we close it?
We can
should.
close. I'd like to make a motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
Close the hearing. Close the meeting.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
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 Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Good.